time, we'll call the meeting on March 17th to order. Councilmember Friend, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Friend?
Here.
Councilmember Scatini?
Here.
Mayor Velasquez?
Here.
Councilmember Valdivia?
Here.
Councilmember Gomez?
Here.
Interim City Manager Rivera?
Present.
City Attorney Sullivan?
Here.
And Chief of Police Westrick?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Verification of agenda posting.
The agenda for the City Council meeting of March 17th was posted on the bulletin board at City Hall on March 13th at 11:48 a.m. per Government Code Section 54954.2.
Thank you very much. We'll move forward to item A, consent resolution. Are there any speaker cards?
I have none.
Any items council wishes to pull for discussion?
Move to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item B, no business. Item C, public input. This is the time for anyone in the audience to speak on any item not on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. When the city clerk calls your name, please come to the podium, state your name and city for the record, and speak to the city council. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Please note that state law prohibits the city council from discussing or taking any action on any item not on the agenda. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Vince Grewal.
Good evening. Vince Grewal, Hollister Firefighters Association President. Mayor, council members, I would like to take a brief moment of your time to address parity with salary negotiations and discussions, as you know. During your December 2013 council meeting, management received a salary raise, and soon thereafter, the Hollister firefighters requested implementation of their Me Too clause. As signed and agreed to by both the city and the Hollister Firefighters Association in 2011, as some of you may remember, the intent of adding in this clause was to ensure that when and if the city finances were in better shape, that if management or any other group received across-the-board salary increase, the same increase shall be offered to all eligible members of unit members under the same terms and conditions. Negotiations between the City of Hollister and Hollister Firefighters Association will not open until this matter is resolved. We look forward to working with the city for the full implementation and retroactivity pay our Me Too clause the City Council approved in December. We also look forward to working with the city to receive the incentive bonus of $1,000 received by SEIU and other management employees, as that would be included in the definition of our Me Too clause. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. Are there any other speakers?
No.
That's it. We'll move forward to item D1. Who's speaking on the tourism? There you go, Sarah.
Sarah is here.
Good evening, everyone. Sarah Fontanos, a management analyst for San Bernardino County. I'm here to give you an update and to chat with you about the Tourism Business Improvement District. On May 4th, I provided the same presentation to the Board of Supervisors. Basically, out of 15 lodging establishments, 4 attended a February 19th meeting to hear and get an overview and introduction to what a Tourism Business Improvement District is, and to ask any questions and see if there was any interest in starting one. The 4 that were there was the Cinderella Motel, the Ridgemark. I believe there was a hunters kind of group. It's called the Quarter Circle, and then Joshua Bed and Breakfast. Very different establishments, of course, so they all had very different concerns, but a lot of them focused on the just simple questions about the T-bid, what it was, and also how that relates to the transient occupancy tax and how that might be a concern to harming their business in regards to vacancies and having people actually there and what they pay and keeping that number up there. They didn't dismiss the idea, although they had some strong questions and wanted answers before they really decided whether or not they are interested in creating one. I did find out that they're trying to set up a meeting to meet with each other and to have more establishment owners get together with them to talk about it. Again, they're continuing to ask great questions. I've been there as a resource for them. It is the board's concern that the county not be a leader of this idea, but merely presenting the idea to them in hopes of them rolling with it and creating it. The idea being that the more people in their establishments, then the more funding and marketing of San Benito County. So just wanted to give you that update. I'll continue to be there for them to answer any questions, but other than that, that's all I have.
Thank you. Are there any speaker cards?
Sorry, Marty Richmond.
Hi, Marty Richmond from Hollister. I support this idea. The county's been talking about either or and both, raising their TOT and doing the TBIP. I would rather see you not raise the TOT and do this instead, and the reason is that filling the rooms and getting the tourists in here is much more effective than just taking the last 2 or 3%. So what this would mean would be you would have a tax district. The board, as I understand it, would be consist of the people who actually pay the tax, be on top of the TOT, you wouldn't reduce it, and they would get to control how that money is spent to increase tourism in the city and increase the use of their facilities. That's the way it works. So it's kind of you're giving them the tax district. You would not have control over how the money is spent. It would not reduce your TOT intake by 1 penny. In fact, the hope is it would increase it by a lot. And I want you to realize how much that is. If my calculations are right, when we sell something in the city, we basically get back about 2% in sales tax. We get the 1% withheld from the Bill knows better than I do, and he can correct me if I'm wrong. We get the 1% withheld from the at the state, and then we get 1%, which is our transaction tax. Is that correct? That is correct. So we get 2%. But when you get somebody staying in a room at night, you get 8%, and you get the whole 8%. Okay, when you sell, so that means you get 4 times the value of selling something over a counter. So if someone stays in a room that costs $150, it's basically the same as selling something across the counter that costs $600. That's the economic impact. So you can imagine how important it is to fill those rooms up. And I do hope the hotel and motel operators and the Fairfield Inn, when it comes on, get together and want to run this themselves, because they have to say, we want to do it. And I hope they want to do it because I think it's good for them to fill their rooms, and it's good for us. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. No other speakers? Are there any questions from council? Councilmember Gomez?
Yeah, I have one quick question, Sarah. Regarding the TOT, I've done a little bit of research on this myself.
Okay.
For personal reasons, but have you noticed or have you seen in your research what kind of impact TOT tax changes have had on communities? Some of the just to share a little bit with you, some of the results that I got when initially somebody's looking for lodging somewhere, TOT tax doesn't have to be reported on as the initial cost of the room. So when they're listing their rooms, say on hotels.com or whatever, they use a flat line. So if that room is in an 8% taxed area or 12%, that usually doesn't come up front to the consumer.
Correct.
So have you noticed anything out there, or have you seen any research done on how TOT tax has impacted communities?
I have not. I have the research that I focus on for the TOT because of the questions from the group was, where is it going? So my research has been kind of focusing on that so far, so they have a better understanding of why they aren't seeing it in the marketing area. But I can absolutely, that would definitely be something I'd be
Yeah, just,
interested in.
yeah, that was just kind of a question, and in regards to that, that was a follow-up question I had was, you know, obviously, the current TOT tax, both in the city and the county, is not utilized, I think what it's intended to be utilized for, at least a portion of it should, this is my personal opinion. But has that been a concern? I mean, would you say that the folks that you met with would be, say, maybe slightly more encouraged if they knew it was being reinvested into tourism?
I would say so. They actually also asked, they were looking for a partnership with the county and whether or not any TOT money could be used as seed money to perhaps start, because there's a contractor that makes this process a lot easier. So it would be either something to pay for marketing now, because they're saying the time is now, there's events coming up that they'd like to market for. They don't have time to wait for revenue to be generated. In my research and looking at, you know, where it's going, I mean, from fiscal year 07-08 to 13-14, we're talking $425,000 of TOT revenue. In one fiscal year for jail fees was $825,000. So I know that it would be something that they would love to do, and I think they've done other economic development stuff that, being newer, I'm not too sure of the details there, but I can absolutely see that. But I mean, Chair Munzer was looking at, you know, being warmer to the idea of a T-bid rather than maybe raising TOT, but that was just, again, one person's opinion of the board. So,
Yeah, it was just a concern that I had, just because, or a thought that I had, excuse me, because I know that in the conversations I've had with folks in and outside of the county, you know, we've seen TOT tax in other areas at 12, 15%, and they don't seem to be lacking, you know, the availability to have a good occupancy rate. But at the same time, I think our biggest dilemma here in the city, at least speaking for the city in itself, hasn't been necessarily the revenue or what we're getting from it, is the lack of having somewhere for somebody to stay. So I think, you know, obviously with the new Fairfield Inn coming in, that should have a significant impact. But I think overall, I don't, you know, I know that they have their concerns, but I think if they understood, not if they understood, if they felt the commitment from the community leaders that a TOT tax could benefit them directly, then I think they would be a little bit more warm to it. I support this T-bid. I mean, obviously, that's something that they buy into, so, hey, that's great, you know. It doesn't really take any leadership from anybody in the community, really, other than obviously you kind of bringing it to their attention and letting them know the benefits, but they have to buy into it. A TOT tax is completely different, but I think extremely beneficial if it's dedicated properly. You know, if it's allocated properly, it could really have an impact. So thank you for clarifying that, sir.
No
Appreciate
problem.
it.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Friend?
I noticed in the report that the county board of supervisors asked you, or you were making the presentation, to do a straw poll of the available owners and participants. Have you done that, and what's been the,
so
other than the 4 people that showed up?
right. So they've been somewhat tested to come together again. I wanted to allow that group of 4 to kind of reach out on their own to the 4 people that attended, as well as to other outsiders. They're working on that as soon as, and that was at the end of last week. As soon as they have that meeting, I would like to set up the next one to hopefully grab more of them together and discuss it again, and also have answers to some of the questions that they've been asking. They're starting to get kind of down into the detail of the creation of a tourism business district, and there's questions about how it's formulated and basically how their vote is weighted. Because there are, you know, obviously very different establishments. There's some people who have 4 bedrooms, there's some people who have 24, and then there's some with more. So they seem to be having some concern on how much their vote counts towards the beginning of the creation of the district.
So can we expect a report back from you in another month?
Oh, absolutely. Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
Thank you.
Councilmember Scatini?
Yeah, sir, at the Governments Committee, I think I asked you at that time, in order to contact these people, you do it by phone, to follow up by phone. I know you sent letters out and made contacts, but did did you get an opportunity to call them up by phone to attend these meetings?
Janelle did. She was actually heading the effort prior to my arrival, so she had called every single one of them.
Okay.
Some of them were an outright no. Since then, I've had a little more personal, in-person connections with some that may be more interested in coming and talk, at least hearing about it and understanding what it is.
Okay.
So I prefer meeting in person a little more
Right.
than phone calls, but absolutely phone calls and meeting.
Thank you. That's it.
Councilmember Valdivia?
No, I have no questions.
Question I would ask is, what's the timeline as far as if you can't have the owners pull together for the T-bid, at what point do you bring that forward for the TOT increase? I think what Councilmember Gomez is pointing out, there's an opportunity here to take that money, invest it into tourism, and if we don't do it, we're not going to have the funding to do it. So is there a timeline here where we're going to say,
I would have to ask my supervisor, but I think I would initially like to give it a couple of months of solid, letting them, and then a month for me. At least having 2 more meetings on my part to try to really bring them all in, and then I would have to see, from there how much more effort they'd like me to put into it as well before then they lead on their own. So hard to say. I can have that answer for you the next intergovernmental if you'd like.
maybe city attorney or city manager can tell us what would that timeline be to put it on the ballot if the T-bid doesn't go through, to go to a TOT? For the general election, I'm assuming this is for the general election.
So if there's not a T-bid, putting an increase of TOT on?
Right.
Yeah, it's a Prop 218 issue, and it hasn't been decided whether T-bids are themselves setting up one, too.
Right, but
That's
if we
an
want-
open question.
If we want to go to the increase on the existing TOT tax, what's the timeline that we need to have that answer to put it on the ballot? Do we know yet?
Is it like June, Jerry?
It would be in June. The city council has to adopt a resolution that goes to the Board of Supervisors, and it should be done no later than June,
Okay.
early
So
June.
we're running against a timetable here that there's not much left. So if you can please encourage them and let them know that all that revenue will go towards the tourism. We're not here to take that money from them. We want to see more tourism, so we want to have somebody making the effort to get the word out there.
Not a problem.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move forward to item E1. It's a resolution for the City Council, City of Hollister declaring a water shortage emergency and implementing San Benito County Water District's water shortage contingency plans. Do we have?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor.
a speaker on that?
Yeah, we have Jeff and Sean and Harry here to answer any questions, but I'll try to just do a real brief report. San Benito County Water District on February 18th adopted a resolution basically declaring a sort of a stage 1 contingency for voluntary conservation. We've had 3 years of basically very little rain in a row. So the stage 1 declaration would trigger a voluntary water conservation effort from the community with a goal of reducing water demand by 15%. There's no rate increases are necessary to offset the voluntary reduction through the management and the district's financial reserves. Public outreach, Sean has been doing a good job of getting out there in the public and asking them to be careful with the amount of water that residents are using. We are relatively fortunate enough, as we've had the discussion, I've had the discussion with Councilman Scatini and yourself, our groundwater reserves are fairly adequate. We can sustain a few more years of this sort of weather, but much beyond a few more years, it would probably end up being worse. Those gentlemen over there are truly the experts. If you have any questions for them, I'm sure they can answer that. Otherwise, staff recommends opening the public hearing and receiving oral and written testimony and adopting the attached resolution.
Council, have any questions?
I'd like to, and I know Sean has done this before, but I think it may be good to hear from Sean just because he's the expert on this. And, maybe if, I know that other cities have and counties have maybe rebates on rebates and sort of, you know, programs available out there from the county and water agencies. So I don't know if you have any background on that, Sean, that,
Yeah,
that
well,
you could
you know, it
share with
depends
us.
where you're at in the state, mattering what the conditions are. You know, our neighbors over on the coast, Santa Cruz, has some mandatory requirements going on now for the drought. But as Billy was saying, our groundwater supply here kind of is helping us right now. But, you know, I try to stress we need to stay ahead of the curve because we don't know how long this drought's going to last. So water conservation is kind of like a savings account. What we save today, we can use later. So we've done a really good job as far as indoor conservation goes. But landscapes are what we're really trying to focus on now, because in residential water use, over 50% of the water is used for landscape purposes. And, you know, even though it's been warm, we haven't seen the peak irrigation season hit yet. So that's kind of trying to get out in front of the curve there. So we have some pamphlets going out as bill inserts in April to tell people how to water through the drought. We're going to have a workshop on May 3rd. And then I've upped our public outreach with ads in the paper and flyers and bill inserts. And we're getting a lot of response. And I know the city, as well as Sunny Slope, they alert people when their water use is higher than normal. And that's really been working out well, because we got people, you know, they call us immediately. And we get in their house and we're able to look for leaks and then help them with their irrigation assistance, tell them about our rebates and whatnot. But, you know, one thing I can't quantify and I can't watch all the time is people's personal habits. So, you know, just little actions of turning off the water when you're brushing your teeth or when you're shaving or something, they add up collectively. So trying to get people to do that is just remind them constantly. So that's kind of where I'm at.
All right, wonderful. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to hear.
Okay.
Thank you, Sean.
Yes. Yes, Councilman.
I noticed in Santa Clara County, and I know that's a different district and everything, but they had a flyer that came out to the households and explained to people how to look at their meter, shut off all the water that they have in the house and watch the meter. If it's moving,
It's excellent.
they have an issue. And I'm just wondering if something like that is going to be coming out so
Well,
that
we do.
people can
We-
self-check themselves.
Yeah, well, when we go out to our home water surveys, we try to get the customer to come with us, and we show them that tool, because that's an excellent tool. So anybody can use it. If you shut off your water, you go look at your water meter. There's usually a leak indicator on there. If it's moving at all, you have a leak. So call us. We'll be glad to come out and show you personally, and then also just check the house for leaks. So that's a real great tool to use. So I encourage that. And some of my information that goes out has that information on it.
Okay. Other questions from the council?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for you, Sean.
Yes, sir.
I think being on the Water Resource Board with you, your committee, I think I brought this up to you before. If we are going to continue to suck water out of those hydrants to put on the roads, and here we're talking about conserving water,
Sure.
what I'd like to know, what is being done with those meters that's supposed to be working there are not working or not even being used?
The one that's hooked up to the hydrants?
The one that hook up to hydrant that's going out to these construction companies that pouring the water on the road.
Yeah, quite frankly, I let the utilities handle that, but I do bring it up as a concern. So it's their policies and procedures that dictate how those are used. But I make sure and mention that.
Okay. Maybe I should ask these guys here.
Well, they don't really deal with that. It's mainly.
Yeah, construction meters is really a function of the city of Hollister. So, like we've had that discussion as well. I'm hoping that we don't let broken meters leave to be used for construction purposes. Again, flushing hydrants is just part of the normal maintenance of our water system. That's what we're supposed to be doing. So we probably will be doing that less and less. But as far as the actual application of construction meters and stuff, that's completely on us, not necessarily the Water District or the Water Resources Board or Harry.
Okay, let me put you on the spot. Since we are responsible for it, what have you done since we talked about it last time? I showed you my concerns, talked about my concerns about that water going out. Has anybody from the engineer department go out and check and see if they're using those meters?
If anybody has actually checked to use
Right.
to see whether or not construction, well, yes, I think the message has gotten out to Jeff and our public works inspector to make sure that when he's on site, that any water truck that's connecting to our system is using the construction meter. I believe I mentioned to you that I believe our code enforcement officer, Mike Chambliss, had written a citation to somebody who was filling up a tank without a meter. And I can tell you that although he's not here this evening, Henry Gonzalez is another one that has also stopped people from connecting. And again, if you or any council member or any member of the city staff ever sees anybody connected to a hydrant besides our street sweeping machine without a meter, please call the police. It's stealing. There's no question about it. So we can all help in this. It's not necessarily one department's sort of responsibility. It's all of our responsibility if we see it. So.
Okay.
So to add to that, we talked about seeing if we could raise a fine for somebody that is stealing from the hydrant. So maybe we could bring that to put on the agenda for future meetings. Bill?
Okay, I'm just kind of looking at Mike. How much is it right now?
250 would be the quick ticket. You might be able to work one out, but it's 500.
If you didn't hear, for the audience that didn't hear it, it's 250 or 500.
So maybe we could look at bringing that back and increasing that fine so people know we're serious about it.
Oh, sure.
What about raising the water rates too for that?
I should have also mentioned that, yes. I have had a brief conversation with the folks about making sure that our fees reflect the current rate for the actual water that's being used. Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Valdivia?
Yeah, Sean, hi. Listen, what if you have, if any, what sort of, what's your procedure for reaching out to folks about what we're talking about, the water shortage, to entice the community to make sure they're careful?
Well,
in the water.
you know,
Do you have anything in place, or you started already?
No, I have a whole public information program. You know, we've had bill
That's gonna be real
inserts,
important.
newspaper ads,
Yeah,
web ads.
yeah.
I'm on CMAP doing our TV show where we talk about that. We have public service announcements on there. I went to Rotary last week. I've been to Sunny Slope City Council last week to talk about it. So I'm trying to make it out. I still need to get out to San Juan Bautista, but whoever will have me, I will show up at and talk about our water because it's so important. And then, of course, I work in the schools, and the children are great. You know, I concentrate on 5th grade, and they're like little missionaries. You know, give them some ideas, and they go home, and we give them our card to give us a call, and that works out really well. I'm going to be out at Bellotto Park tomorrow. We got a chance to see 3,000 3rd graders, so I'll have information on that for them to take home as well. So all in all, I try to reach everybody. We have a Spanish bill insert going out this month for our Spanish-speaking customers as well. So, you know, the media here is very limited. Bonito Link helps us a lot.
I saw you on Next Door.
Did you? Yeah, I would try to get on all those things, and then just I'm trying to utilize what we have. But as you know, our Spanish radio station has moved to Watsonville, and it has a larger broadcast area. It's Salinas and Gilroy and here. So to specifically target Hollister, it's very difficult. So I'm using the tools that are available, and they seem to be working. And people are concerned. I'm really happy. I've had people call me. Usually it's when it hits their pocketbook, but I've had people call to have us come out to their house just because they're concerned about our water supply. That always makes me feel better that people take it seriously. So we've had quite a few calls.
Yeah, and it's really important to communicate with the folks that, right now we're taking precautions because in a couple of years it could be worse. If we continue this way. Also, you're very welcome to come to the community center. We provide services to a lot of the older folks in the community.
Yeah.
And whatever we can help to make sure that the word gets out to that segment of the community, we're willing to help you.
Sure.
So don't hesitate, because we
I
also
will. We've done that before, but I think
go
I need to come again.
into the homes and provide information in English and Spanish, if it's got to,
Yeah, I'll make sure and do that.
Talk to the folks. That's great.
Yeah, and a lot of those people are on fixed income, so it's a bigger hit for them too. So, but anyway, yeah, thank you. Is there any other questions?
Any other questions from the council? No? Okay. At this time, I'm going to open this item up for a public hearing. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, Marty Richmond?
Good evening again. I'm making up for lost time because I missed the meeting. I guess it's no secret I hate paying that much money for my water. but I love having water in the house. I've always said that. My only complaint is I think it's much more expensive than it ought to be. But, you know, having sat through a lot of water briefings recently, it's obvious that a lot of people don't realize that water is basically a fungible asset. It's moving up and down the state, all over the state. And so I'm shocked to find out there's 255,000 unmetered access in the state of California, and the vast majority of them are around Sacramento. East Sacramento, West Sacramento, North Sacramento, South Sacramento, paying $20 a month. All the water you want. Just turn it on and let it run. No meter. Well, since that water technically belongs to all of us, just like our water belongs to LA, and LA brings water in from the Colorado River, and the famous blue valve gets shut off because the delta smelt and all those problems, you can see the water is basically fungible asset that moves up and down the state, and therefore the water problem is everybody's problem, including those lovely people in Sacramento who don't have metered water. They get it for free, basically. So my question is, and the other shocking thing was that there are more than 3,000 water businesses in this state that, just like our Sunny Slope Water District and our Hollister Water District, that sell water, move water, and sometimes buy and sell it back to the state at an enormous profit, because the state's not very smart sometimes. So my question is, how about getting in front of the curve, and I don't think anybody suggested this, and write a letter to the state of California and say, look, at some level at the state, I don't care about, you don't want to run everybody's water district, but at some level you got to have some rules. And one of the rules might be, how about you shouldn't be pumping water for free in Sacramento if we're paying for it down here in Hollister. That makes no sense at all to me. And especially because I noticed that West Sacramento, North Sacramento, East Sacramento, and South Sacramento are the biggest recipients of the block grants in the entire state of California. I know it has nothing to do with the fact that they're right next to the legislature. It just happens to come out that way, okay? I think you ought to consider for a future thing for this city is to write a letter signed by the city council or the mayor on behalf of the city council saying to Sacramento, hey, you ought to put in some rules that at least will control the amount of water people pump. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Are there any other speakers?
No.
Okay. We do have another speaker.
Marvin Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. It was right after the first of the year, reading up on weather forecasts, and there was one article, have not been able to find confirmation of it, but the Western Pacific was getting ready to have some of the early signs of an El Nino. We'll just have to wait and see what happens come Christmas. Right now, we've got to conserve our water. Question that came to mind was, if we make this 15% reduction in our water usage, your revenue's going down. You're going to be raising the rates? That's something that needs to be considered. If it comes to that and we get rain come Christmas time and we don't have to do the conservation, well, the rates go back down. But if you don't get the revenue, you're going to have to do something about the rates. Well, just thought. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. No other speakers? Okay, at this time, we'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
Okay. So move to approve the resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries, 5-0 vote. We'll move forward to item F1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Good evening. These next two items, F1 and F2, are a request to initiate pre-zoning of unincorporated parcels. The zoning title of the Hollister Municipal Code requires City Council authorization to initiate pre-zoning in the, for properties in the unincorporated area of the county for annexation. This first applicant, Mr. Robert Cutts, is seeking City Council authorization to initiate the pre-zoning of 3 adjacent county parcels consisting of 5.16 acres located south of Hillcrest Road, east of El Cerro Drive, and west of the west terminus of Sawtooth Drive, it's right across the street from the cemetery, Hillcrest. Attachment 1 of your transmittal, there's a site plan for your review. Property is located in the sphere of influence of the City of Hollister, also within the low-density residential designation of the general plan, which allows up to 8 units per acre. Public services do exist in the vicinity. There is a 12-inch water main along the south side of Hillcrest Road. There's also a 8-inch sanitary sewer line along Hillcrest and also a 12-inch storm drain along Hillcrest Road. So pending your decision tonight to approve, this is just the initiation of pre-zone. The applicant would be able to submit a pre-zone application to the City of Hollister Development Services Department. Staff will review the application and make an environmental determination pursuant to CEQA. Staff will then schedule public hearings with the Planning Commission, then City Council, and eventually with LAFCO. That's the first item. Joe's going to talk about the second one.
The second applicant is seeking City Council authorization to initiate the pre-zoning of an unincorporated parcel consisting of 2.17 acres located between the Samio Street Extension and Cienega Road. It's about a quarter mile north of the Samio Street and Union Road intersection. The attachment one of the transmittal is the site plan, and that's for your review. The property is located within the sphere of influence of the city, and the City of Hollister General Plan has designated this area as low-density residential. And with that, staff recommends that the City Council adopt 2 resolutions, resolution number 2014-54 and 2014-55, authorizing the initiation of pre-zone applications 2014-1 and 2014-3. Any questions for staff?
Any questions from council? Councilmember Scatini?
Is this in the county? Right, these two parts, these 2 resolutions, are they dealing with the county property, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, are these in the sphere of the City of Hollister?
Yes.
Okay, is that proper to do that? If it's, I'd like to ask you, Bill,
Yes?
is it proper to pass these resolutions when they're not even in the city yet?
This is the first process. This is the first part of the process to do that. The pre-zoning is for the annexation part. This is this is the first step or second step, essentially.
Okay.
It'll go to LAFCO.
Correct. Eventually, we'll go to LAFCO, but this is the first step. Pending your decision tonight, then the applicant gets to go ahead to submit for an actual pre-zone, and then we will review if there's any type of, we'll review the pre-zoning, and then eventually, if you approve the pre-zoning, it will go to LAFCO for annexation.
I see, okay. Understand.
Any other questions from council?
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, before you call for a motion, I have a speaker's arm waving for Marty Richmond.
We wouldn't cut you off, Marty.
Oh, I know that. I don't think you're cutting me off. I'm not here to complain. I just want, Marty Richmond again, like I said, I have to make up for lost time. So I want to, just as a reminder for the future as we move on this, however it turns out, the director of LAFCO had a lot to say about this situation exactly as it's being presented now concerning the proper way to do the tax sharing agreement with the county. I don't want to characterize his testimony, but he did say he did not think that requiring the city or the developer to pay $9,000, whatever the number was, per unit was the right way to do it. He made a big speech about it. He said he knows no one else doing it that way, and he says it doesn't make economic sense and it doesn't appear to comply with the intent, not the letter, the intent of what this is all about. I would hope, for the sake of whoever this is, and I have no idea who owns these properties, that we get this straightened out before we get to that point. We don't just keep running ahead and doing it wrong because we've been doing it wrong for a long time. I understand you do not have the power to do that unilaterally. You will have to sit down with the county and work it out. But just to remind you what it was, is he said the developer's not supposed to give them a cash payment. What they're supposed to work out is a tax sharing agreement on the property as the property goes forward. And that way, these little islands of county property that keep getting stuck in the city, the developers will have no reason to do that, no good reason to do that. And it's wound up with this mess we have in that particular area, and I know you're all aware of it. You walk along, the sidewalk stops, and you say, why is there no sidewalk here? There's just a sign say, please don't run over the lady with the baby carriage because there's no sidewalk here. And the reason is that somebody thought they could save $10 by staying in the county, okay? And we, many years ago, said, sure, why not? Go ahead, stay in the county. So I hope we move forward with LAFCO and ask them to propose something solid to straighten this out as we move on some properties that exactly fit this description. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any speakers? Councilmember Friend?
Maybe I'm mistaken, but I thought that was part of the annexation agreement that we've worked on for 10 years to get solidified so that these islands can be incorporated into the city. They have to pay the annexation fee, and they have to pay the sewer connection fee, and they have to pay all the services fee, just like a new developer would, to do that.
Yeah, and I think what Marty's referring to is there's a property tax sharing agreement that was adopted by everybody in 1999, and then we basically did the same one again in 2010. I think what the problem is, just in general terms, is there's a fiscal neutrality fee to developers who are annexing their property into the city limits, that actually that payment goes to the county. And as Marty said, it's $9,500 per door. It's collected at the time that the city of Hollister issues a building permit for building a new house, say, on that property. But the general property tax sharing agreement is required prior to annexations. You have to have a valid property tax sharing agreement. I know San Juan Bautista just amended theirs. I think there's some discussion about doing the same thing with us. So I'm not sure if that necessarily addressed your question, but certainly our new executive director at LAFCO truly believes that has become a hindrance on folks, especially those folks that are in Sunny Slope County Water District, because it used to be that we had sort of something that developers needed. We had services, we had sewer, and we had water. And without annexations, we wouldn't necessarily provide those services to them. Now with the new sort of regional plant and the fact that half of our community is served by Sunny Slope, the city itself doesn't necessarily have complete jurisdiction over those services anymore. So it has become recently a problem for new development, or for development, I should say, for properties that are sort of on the east side of town. And they're wanting to move forward with development without actually annexing to the city of Hollister, because nobody wants to pay $10,000 per door as a fiscal neutrality. So we're trying to work on getting rid of that. I shouldn't say get rid of it, just negotiate something different.
Get rid of it.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Councilmember Scatini?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused. Sitting on the planning commission for several years, I thought before we can take this step here, that LAFCO would have to approve of it.
No, this is first.
And this is only a pre-zone, it's not a...
I understand that, but we're pre-zoning something that's not even in the
You're
city yet.
Yeah, you're initiating the pre-zone so that when LAFCO takes action and annexes, it's already zoned. There's already a zone in place.
And these are indicated in your general plan what they are, so they're not a surprise to the landowner.
Okay, what happens if LAFCO denies it? What would you do then? What's the
Then they would
procedure?
develop in the county.
I see.
One of the reasons why we're here before you is to indicate that these parcels do have the services in the vicinity where they would be able to connect as well. And so if you approve it, then the applicant would move forward with the request. If you think that it's not okay, it's not ripe for the future development of it, then you would deny it. But At this point, if you would approve it, then the applicant would submit, and we would continue the pre-zone.
Understand. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from council? No? At this point, we'll move forward. Is there a motion for approval of?
I'll make a motion
F.
to approve Resolution 54 and 55.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries with 5-0 vote.
Thanks.
We'll move forward now to item G1, report from city council members regarding their committees. Councilmember Gomez?
I have nothing to report.
Councilmember Valdivia?
No, pass.
Councilmember Scatini?
None to report.
Councilmember Friend?
No report.
The only report I have is on the homeless issue with the intergovernmental committee, but we're going to be speaking about that, so we'll talk about that as we move forward. We'll go to item G2, any informational reports from city council members regarding any items or activities in the city they want to announce. Councilmember Gomez?
No.
Councilmember Valdivia?
I'll pass.
Councilmember Scatini?
None.
And Councilmember Friend?
No.
I have nothing to report at this time. City manager?
The only thing I would like to report is I believe that we have our retreat scheduled for April 3rd, starting at 12 o'clock. Oh, we're going to go to 1 o'clock. Sorry, 1 o'clock on April 3rd. The second thing is that if the council is available, I'd like to have a special meeting on March 31st, Monday, March 31st. It should be a relatively quick meeting to handle some budgetary items and some appropriations.
What time is that meeting on 31st?
I would suggest 6 o'clock. 6?
Okay. City attorney?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Chief?
Just one thing, I apologize now, but in the next couple of weeks, you're going to be hearing a lot about distracted driving and our enforcement of it. I believe in the second week of April is the distracted driving campaign. So we'll be doing high visibility and enforcement of that as well. So don't text and drive, pull over, use a Bluetooth device. So you'll be hearing a lot about it.
Thank you very much. City clerk?
Thank you. Besides the retreat, I also wanted to remind you and everyone else that on April 5th is the Walk a Mile in Her Shoes event. Starts at 10 o'clock on the 400 block.
Is there still time to back out?
No, you're committed.
Your heels are ready. Councilmember Gomez, you had another comment?
Yeah, I forgot to announce one thing. It's more District 4 related, but I did want to, first of all, I want to thank Clay and your staff, Chief Westrick, and your staff and your involvement on March 29th from 9 a.m. to noon. The Glenview, Valley View community will be having a park cleanup day for the Whale Park, as it's also known as. Like I said, it's March 29th. If you want to get involved, shoot me an email, Clay, Chief, anybody. Let us know. We're definitely looking for volunteers out in the community, donations, and any of that good stuff. So if anybody just wants to do some volunteer work, we would love to see you out there, and that's March 29th at the Whale Park. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Let's move forward to item G3.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This item is a quick report on the Parks Division's use of pest control services. At the March 3rd City Council meeting, the council requested a report on the city's current use of pest control services for our various parks in the Parks Division. We currently have 6 parks, 6 city-maintained parks in which we utilize pest control services, primarily from a company out of Salinas called Gavilan Pest Control. And their primary function is to try and keep a control over the gophers and ground squirrels in 6 of our parks that the city maintains. And the price that we pay now, the collective price for all these, there's about roughly 95 acres of parkland that we try to keep a control on the rodents. And that's the price that we pay is $1,350 a month for these services. Gavel and Pest Control, we've been engaging their services for approximately 5 years to do this work for us. Some parks are a little more under control than others, and a lot of it is dependent upon the location of the facility and in relationship to some of the agricultural land that we have to battle these little varmints against. But anyhow, Gavel and Pest Control is a company that not only deals with the city of Hollister, they also work with the city of Salinas, the city of Marina. At their airport, they have professional services that are also provided to the Hollister Elementary School District, in addition to the Salinas Elementary School District. So they deal with a lot of public agencies throughout our region. And Wes Varner, who is the general manager, is we found to be very, very professional, very open, and very willing to sit down and meet with us and discuss issues as they come up. And I know Councilmember Scattini has been out to a couple of the sites with Wes and City Manager Avra and myself and some of my staff. But anyhow, I'd be glad to try and answer any questions that the council may have.
Okay. Do we have any questions from council? Councilmember Scattini.
Thank you, Clay, for coming and showing up. First of all, I asked this to be brought on from last council meeting, and my concern was this. I went out that morning and met with you and the manager from Gavel Pest Control.
Right.
And the total, it's about almost $19,000 a year for pest control for the city of Hollister. I personally went out there and walked and drove the park, Brigantino's Park, and then I went up to the park on 5th Street, 6th Street, and Frank Carr's Park, and the hill up on the hill. That same day with you folks. I found that there was some issues out there at the Brigantino Park. There wasn't a squirrel anywhere around, and it was loaded with squirrels from what I understand in the past. This company been with the city for 5 years. And talking to the manager that morning, I explained why that, that I was concerned to spend that kind of money when we are really strapped here in the city to go out and do that type of duty on those squirrels, and which wasn't any squirrels. I walked to Dunn Park. I didn't find a whole one in Dunn Park. I went up to Frank Carr's Park up there in the Sunny Slope District. There wasn't any fresh holes whatsoever. And on the hill up there, I walked that park, and there was about 4 fresh holes at the time. This is every month. And so what I like to see, and we have somebody in the city that is trained and licensed to do that. I believe he works for the airport. And what I like to see, we bring it in-house and try it ourselves, which we could probably save a lot of more money than $16,000, $19,000 a year. And that's what I like to see. Maybe get another person to help do it. I went again 2 months later myself, the same parks, and there wasn't any holes whatsoever at all, and none of those parks except for Brigantino's Park. That's the only one that had a problem. There was no squirrels, and so they really knocked them down. And I just can't see spend that kind of money for nothing, for no fresh holes. So what I'm trying to say is that they did a good job knocking it down, and I like to bring it in-house and try to save some money.
Okay. Is there any other questions from council?
I have a question, or I guess more of a comment, but, so is it safe to say that maybe because we're not seeing these pests out there, that this pest control stuff is working?
That would be the argument that Gavilan Pest Control would make, that they've been consistent in being out there and have gotten a control over some of the situations, not all of them. If you go out to the Brigantino property, you'll see evidence of a lot of burrows from ground squirrels and gophers and so on. They may not be fresh evidence of that, but our staff has been out there from day one, and we've been trying to monitor, just a visual, which is very unscientific, but we've noticed, reduction in what we've observed. But we certainly can go in the direction of looking into getting some of our staff certified. The State of California Department of Pesticide Regulation, DPR, requires anybody that's going to be dealing with this type of work to have a qualified applicator's license, which is just like any state certification. There's an exam that goes along with that, and you have to get your folks certified and maintain those certifications. And then one thing that was shared with me from Mr. Varner from Gavilan Pest Control is labor is a portion of the cost, but one of the big expenses is the material that you're using for, I'll say, bait, but there's other chemical or other solids that they use for keeping the rodents under control, and it is not cheap. So and depending on the quantity of land that you have, like at Brigantino, we have 51 acres in itself. So that would take quite a bit of.
Yeah, well, when Councilmember Scattini actually, when he mentioned somebody at the airport, I just imagined Mr. Chambliss out there with his 22 or something, taking them all out. That's the only thing that came to my mind, because he's a one-man show out there. So I figured that's probably what he's doing. Bringing this in-house, I doubt it would be anything under $50,000. To be honest with you, I mean, I don't see, we're already limited in staff, and the reason we're going with the private company is probably because it's cheaper. So, I do agree with Councilmember Scattini. It's expensive. I mean, it's a lot of money, and that's why he's legitimately concerned. But I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more. If you came back and said, hey, this is what it would cost to get trained, and this is what it would cost, yes. I would support Councilmember Scattini in looking into that. I doubt anybody will end up addressing the cat issue out there at Brigantino, though, so, I doubt that's going to happen. But I wouldn't mind looking into it a little bit further. I wouldn't necessarily have you dedicate a lot of time looking into this, but, it's obviously a large expense, so.
To my knowledge, we have one person on city staff right now, and that is in the airport operation that has his qualified applicator's license. Dennis Rose, our former wastewater treatment plant operator who's now retired, had it also. And I think he was actually doing some work out at the airport at one time to help keep the costs down. And I know he did work at the wastewater treatment plants as well, and I think we're more than willing to look into trying to get some of our Parks Division personnel, interested in getting themselves certified.
Absolutely, I don't think it would hurt to look into that at all. And on top of that, I will say, Councilmember Scattini, on the bright side, working for the City of San Jose in District 10, the Almaden Valley is being swarmed by wild boar. And they're tearing up golf courses, front lawns, and it made national news. And it's, not that I like squirrels or anything, or not that I like them or don't like them, but I'd rather have a squirrel out there than a wild boar. So anyway, thank you, Clay. I appreciate that.
Certainly.
Okay. Are there any other questions from council? Well, let's move forward to item G4.
Excuse me, before we move on to G4, is there some direction? Are we satisfied with the status quo, or do you want us to?
I think the comments were to get us a little more information on what it costs to get people qualified
In-house.
in-house.
Okay.
Okay, when are you going to bring that back? Like that.
Bring that back at the following meeting. Would that be enough time for you, Clay? To bring that information back? Okay. Let's move forward to item G4. The homeless issue. Enrique, I saw him earlier. There you are. You're hiding there with Marty.
They're holding hands.
Okay, well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, and members of the public. My name is Enrique Arriola. I'm Deputy Director for Health and Human Services Agency with the San Benito County. I think we all know that we have problems in our community relating to the high number of homeless individuals. Just drive downtown and they're everywhere. I believe that it is our duty and obligation to help support our local homeless community. And I've seen not only men, I mean, talking about women, talking about even youth, and also families living in their car, in their vans. The county operates a winter shelter program, and last year we've had 2 families that touched me. We had a family of 4, a single mom that came that morning trying to see if we had any renter's assistance because she's in need of rent to find a place to live. So in talking to her, we found that she was living in a storage shed for the last few weeks. Didn't have a place to go. She had a storage shed. So that's where she was staying. That evening, we had a space at our shelter, so all their children were able to stay at the shelter. We also had that same year a family of 7 residing in, living or sleeping in their van. Family of 7, husband, wife, and 5 kids. So very unsafe conditions. In the winter, it's pretty cold. So both of these cases had something in common. And for those of these cases, we had they didn't have a job. They were laid off. They were months without a work, so they didn't have an income. So unemployment is sometimes a factor. Right now, the unemployment rate, we have the 16th highest rate in the state, 12.6%. The city of Hollister is 14.1% right now. So we have 3,500 workforce members from our community without work. That's big, 3,500, that's big. The community cost of allowing people to remain on the streets range from $70,000 to $150,000 per year per individual, far exceeding the cost of permanent housing solutions with a community cost of $10,000 to $20,000 a year. So it makes more sense to think about housing, permanent housing. In our community, we do lack resources. We don't have a year-round emergency shelter. We don't have a transitional shelter. We don't have a permanent shelter. But what we do have, you know, we've made some strides over the course of the last 3-4 years or so. What we have in our community is 2 emergency winter shelter programs. One that's operated by a strong partner with the Homeless Coalition of San Benito County. And the other one through Health and Human Services Agency, the Department of Community Services and Workforce Development. Similar type of program, but focusing for families. So one for individuals and one for families. But these programs are fairly small considering the need in our community. I think that in my opinion and the opinion of many, I think to talk about solutions, you got to create partnerships. And this is not just about partnerships between the city or the county. I think that needs to happen. It needs to happen stronger. It needs to think about solutions at all times, but also with our business sector, with local residents, with nonprofit agencies. So I think we all need to unite and have stronger services to support the homeless community. Recently, our mayor and the director of Health and Human Services Agency, Mr. Jim Ridingsword, attended a homeless summit in Santa Barbara County, and you could expand on this too. So what they came back is of a campaign that's called the 100 Homes Campaign, which began in 2011 with the goal of moving 100,000 chronically homeless people from the streets to permanent housing. To date, as of March the 5th, in 235 communities, they have now joined with a goal to reach that 100,000 goal. So as of today, 89,672 have been housed. So there's still a lot of work ahead. It's closer to the goal, but there's a lot more work. County studies show that the best community options to moving people from chronically homeless is offering permanent housing. I think that's a given. They need housing. They need jobs. They need some basic necessities. The keys to successful homeless programs in 235 communities in the nation are permanent housing, but what we also need to provide is the supportive wraparound services. That's essential. To ensure the homeless individuals once off the street can be successful with a team approach of supportive services, such as programs to navigate multiple systems, and advocacy for such programs as Social Security and local health and human service programs that are offered in the community, and also programs that are offered in with local nonprofits. The 100,000 Homes Campaign communities identify their homeless neighbors through an event called a Registry Week, an event that is based on the simple idea that communities work together to identify the most vulnerable homeless individuals and then prioritize their need for permanent housing. The communities in San Benito County, the City of Hollister, and San Juan Bautista can, at no cost, join the 235 other communities across this nation in the 100,000 Homes Campaign. It's anticipated, it's supposed to go through July, but it is anticipated to continue on with the campaign. And locally, we're also a member of the Salinas, Monterey, San Benito County Continuum of Care to End Homelessness. The Homeless Coalition has been real proactive, leading some of the efforts in our community with the homeless census and running different programs. So the other program I didn't mention is a permanent housing. We do have a small permanent housing program that's also operated by the Homeless Coalition. And that's scattered housing, working with the homeless community and providing support services and get them into housing and case management. So there are some resources. I think we could certainly build stronger partnerships and continue to move on the agenda.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Do we have speakers? I'd like to hear from the speakers first. And if you'd like to speak on this subject, please come up. This is a very important issue. And I know it's hard and it's tough to come up, but it's important. And I know a lot of people stayed home today because they're afraid to speak tonight. But please come up if you will.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I do have a speaker's card from Mingo Garcia.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, City Council, for allowing us to be here. We come here representing ABLC Ministries, which is a local church here in the community in the city of Hollister. Last December, the church set out to collaborate with San Benito County Homeless Coalition to help feed displaced individuals that were there at the shelter receiving room and board. So our group assisted in providing hot meals, serving those meals, and then befriending the people and sitting and talking with them to understand their stories and the reason why they had found themselves displaced. In these discussions, we were able to find out that not all of these stories are the same, and they're not all for the same reasons, and they're not all due to mistakes, but rather circumstances that have taken place due to the economy and lost jobs. And in there we've met men, women, families that are there in desperate need. Last month, we were informed that 40 individuals, approximately 40 individuals, staying at this shelter will once again be displaced at the end of this month. That is, today is March 17th. That is March 31st. They will once again be displaced, and 40 more people will be sleeping out on the street. When we caught word of this, we as a church, we met as our leadership, and we felt a personal responsibility to help do something. In this effort, what we did, and we understand this is not a permanent solution, but we did felt the need to do something. We reached out to our membership as well as other friends and family, as well as we have talked to other local businesses that are here in the city of Hollister, and we went out on a campaign, and with a partnership with Big 5 Sporting Goods here in the city, we were able to supply, our goal was to supply 40 sleeping bags and tents for people that were going to be displaced. We understand this is not a permanent solution, but we did feel a responsibility. We could not leave our friends that are homeless right now sleeping in the parks or sleeping under the stars. We are very pleased to say that 2 weeks before this deadline, we have met and exceeded this goal of 40 tents. The support in the community, as well as Big 5 Sporting Goods, has been immediate, and Karen herself, who's the sermon, said if there's anything else we can do, let us know. And we just want to say this. We as ABLC, being a local church here in the community, we feel a personal responsibility to help our fellow man here in the city of Hollister. And at that, our endeavor is to fight exactly what we are discussing today, and that's homelessness here in the city. And with that, we offer our support and our partnership to Mayor Velasquez as well as the City Council. I will even say this, maybe this isn't the appropriate setting, but I'll say this, even as recent as today, I was on a extensive phone call discussion with Habitat for Humanity, who I am collaborating with in the city of San Jose, as well as with Santa Clara County, and they are in full support of going into discussions about how they can help fight homelessness here in Hollister as well. Thank you.
You're going to come up, that's right. Yes.
Hi, my name's Laura. I was a homeless resident at one point. I've been off the streets for 4.5 years, and the Homeless Coalition has helped me with everything. Now I have a job with them, and I am really hoping we can find a solution for this. It is hard out there on the streets, and you know, I know they can do it. We got to find some way to pull them up, help them.
Thank you. Doug, will you come up? And then Karen. We want to celebrate your kindness.
Come on up.
Actually, I had a speaker's card.
Okay.
If I could do this, I just got my voice back today, but my name is Doug Emerson, and I'm currently chair of the Homeless Coalition Board of Directors for the next 2 days. And actually, I came with a request to the city. I've informed our board that I'm resigning from chair, and I probably will resign from our board entirely the end of June. And that's not to leave the area of homelessness. I've worked on that for 9 years. But I would like to take a year and do some in-depth research, kind of as an independent on the whole issue of homelessness in San Benito County. Something Chief Westrick has talked about, trying to put some quantitative data or numbers as to actual cost of a homeless person here in the county. So that's what I'd like to do the next year. But along with that, Enrique mentioned that we are members of the San Benito, Salinas, Monterey Continuum of Care. And a Continuum of Care is a HUD-defined body to deal with homelessness. Almost every jurisdiction now in the United States is a member of this Continuum of Care. And the charge in the last 2 years has been every Continuum of Care has to develop a 10-year plan to end homelessness. and we have that plan. I think the mayor has seen it, other people have seen it. It's called Lead Me Home. It's about an 80-page document about how we're going to deal with homelessness over the next 10 years in our 2 counties. The reason I bring that up is I have been a member of the Leadership Council along with Margie Barrios since its inception probably 3 years ago, and I believe I was seated on that board as a representative of the city of Hollister. Had nothing to do with the Homeless Coalition. I'm going to resign from that board June 30th, and I think it's apparent that the city has somebody who is involved at that level. To give you an idea, the Leadership Council is the governing body of this continuum of care. It's similar to what you do as city council. It develops all the policies. Members of that council it's chaired by the executive director of United Way of Monterey County. The mayor of Salinas sits on that board. Simone Salinas is the vice chair of that board. I think there are 2 members that are actually executive directors of nonprofits. There's a representative from Veterans Transition Center, a representative from the faith-based community. But this board has very little in terms of time requirement. It meets once every 2 months for an hour and a half to 2 hours, and it oversees all the policies for these 2 counties. So I would really like to see somebody from the city take my place on that board. When I told the board that I would be resigning, we don't even know how we got seated to start with. It was kind of we were there and we became that. So there will be a process, but I really would like to see the city still involved with that.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Karen, come down so we can thank you.
About 6 times.
Hi. I'm Karen Mulligan, store manager of Hollister's Big Five. And I was very happy to help these guys. They came to me and asking me for help. I called corporate. I got special pricing. And we had the sleeping bags and tents in 1 week. So anything I can do to help the homeless, just give me a call and I'll see what I can do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for everything you do.
Thanks.
The reason I wanted Karen to come down is to point out that there are businesses that want to help. There's church groups that want to help, that are helping, and there's people like Doug Emerson that have been helping for quite a while. You know, I was brought into this as mayor. The question comes up quite a bit. Why are people sleeping in the parks? Why are people sleeping in downtown? Why do we have so many homeless people? Isn't it easier to put them on a bus and send them away? And the answer is no. Now, I'll tell you, when I first became mayor, I did make the mistake a lot of people make, and I thought maybe there's an easier way to do this, just enforce the laws. Luckily, we have a chief that knows better and set me straight, and a code enforcement officer that really set me straight, and then the attorney that gave it to me. So the answer I'm trying to point out here is we can't just take people and put them on a bus and send them out of town. You know, I was fortunate enough to go out there and start talking to some of the homeless and trying to get some more answers and understand why it's happening in the first place. And there's a lot of reasons. There's obviously substance abuse, mental issues, and people down on their luck. So finding a better answer is important for government. We can't solve the problem, but we can sure help get us there. Recently, I went to a conference in Santa Barbara with Jim Riding Sword on the homeless, and that's where I discovered all these different ways and solutions of addressing the homeless issue rather than trying to sweep it under the rug constantly. And the point they're making out there now across the country is whether we do something or not with a homeless person on the street, if we just turn around and walk right by them, it's costing us $50,000 to $100,000. It's hard to believe, but if you ask the chief, the fire chief, and the police chief, and if you ask the hospitals if that's true, and they'll tell you it is true. Putting them in an apartment or giving them a room somewhere will cost us between $10,000 and $20,000. When you look at numbers, which numbers do you choose? So we're looking for these new ways of doing things, but they take partnerships, they take commitment, they take strength from our council, from the Board of Supervisors. And that's what I'm asking for here, is for us as a community to work together. The shelter's going to close in a couple weeks. We're going to have 40 more homeless on the streets, and the problem continues. Or we start moving forward with these projects such as the 100,000 homes for the homeless, which is actually working. If you think about that for a second, think of yourself as a homeless person on the streets, sleeping outside, one eye open through the night, cold. Are you going to be ready to go to work the next day? These are the reasons why we have to find a way to provide some sort of shelter, temporary housing, permanent housing, or at least a campground where they can be safe through these months when there is no shelter in place. So I think if we can do maybe a campground, if we can work with our county and let them know we're committed to working with them, we'll back them up, do our part. Maybe that'll help them move along. We need to work on finding ways to provide jobs, or at least temporary jobs to our homeless, teach them how to get back into the workforce. These are all things we have to work together on, and this is what I'm asking again of our council and our elected officials at the board. One example, recently we had one of the county service workers went with me to a park to interview one of the homeless there. 2 hours of her time turned out to bring back $300 to $400 to this individual just for filling out paperwork that the federal government now is going to pay for. It's very important we know who our homeless are and we do everything we can to help them, or this problem will continue. And I can tell you right now that I will not put our homeless on buses and send them out of town. I will work until we can find a way to do it. I'm asking my fellow council members if we can get a consensus to move forward with the 100,000 homes program, and also let the county know we're there to support them, both with our time and some resources. So I'd like to hear from my fellow council members if I can. Councilmember Gomez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, first of all, I want to thank the Homeless Coalition, obviously, for the work that they do. I, like former council member Emerson, there he is, I believe I ended up on that board somehow about 3 years ago when it first started. And obviously I started working in San Jose about 1.5 years ago. And then, and then I couldn't make it anymore. So I was there, I think, for like 2 or 3 meetings or something like that. And so I appreciate the work that you guys have done, and obviously the work that you've done over a long period of time. Just like the mayor, I mean, I think we all understand we have an issue. What that solution is, I wish we had a magic wand to be able to assist and to house these individuals. But I don't. I don't have the exact answer on what we need to do. I do understand that it is a collaborative effort on the part of the whole community, the county, the city, but not just the government. I mean, we have the faith-based organizations here that are tremendously helpful. I know that the city of San Jose is also looking at ways to house homeless by putting them in vacant hotels throughout the city, and helping those hotel owners at least have some type of revenue, obviously helping them, and then helping the individual that's out on the streets. So, I think this is a conversation that needs to continue, but ultimately we need to include the county, the nonprofits, and the city in on this conversation. I'm interested in finding out what kind of conversations the intergovernmental committee has had on this issue, because it sounds like that's something that you folks should be addressing, and I'm sure you are addressing. But I'm interested in finding out what kind of discussions you folks have had, and what you expect, and what results you expect of it. And if not, then this is a conversation we need to have at that level, because it impacts the whole county in both jurisdictions. I appreciate you, Mr. Mayor, bringing this up, and everybody bringing this before the board, and I look forward to definitely finding a solution for the whole community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Valdivia?
Thank you. If I recall, I think, Mr. Emerson, thank you very much for the work you've done. I think I was the one that appointed you to work on this coalition on the homeless issue, and we've come a long way. I want to thank you and everybody who's been involved. I was thinking right now, back when Mr. Holte was alive. Everybody remember him? Remember, Robbie, when him and I went down to Gilroy? We went to go visit the homeless shelter over there, because I understand it, at that time it was open every 365 days a year. I don't know if that's still happening, but we did go down there, and we worked with Marley in terms of even getting the armory to see if we can have the armory as a place to have the homeless. Also with the county, I don't know if that's being pursued, if that's still being pursued. The old hospital that's up there on South Side, I don't know what's going on with that, but regardless, and I support this 100%. Regardless of what area we come, we also have to look and see where the resources are going to be to operate the facility. I remember a few years ago, there was, I think it was in Santa Maria, I don't know what they were doing to deal with the homeless. They were renovating motels, old motels, and they were using those to house the homeless until they're able to get off their feet and move on. So that's another idea. We don't have that many motels in our community, but I thought at that time that was really a good idea to do that if it was possible. Again, you have to have the resources to be able to do this. So I think as we move along, I think that once the powers that meet and look and see what we're going to be doing, and then also working with the coalition and all that to see where there might be some resources. I don't know what's going on as far as federal and state funding, but it's something that is there, it's been there for a long time, and I agree with the mayor. I also don't like to see folks in the street, but it doesn't matter who, single people, especially families with children. One day there was a couple at the senior centers. You all know I'm the director for JDA Senior Services, and I had a couple that disappeared for a while, and we were trying to locate them. When they came down to the center with a little suitcase, I go, "Where have you been?" They were staying at the homeless shelter. I was like, oh my gosh, I was just shocked. But anyway, we really we worked with a couple, and they were able to find some housing, through some of our participants that were very generous. But anyway, I just want to say that hopefully that the committees, the powers that be, and also the committee with the county, because this has been an issue for a long time. I mean, now it's getting more and more, again, because of unemployment, lack of housing, not being able to support your family. You find more people living in their vans or cars, etc. And also the folks that have, health issues, but they're still folks, and we're all human in our society, and we need to find out a way how we can take care of each other. So I just want to share that with you, but I do support the concept. I've always have. It's just that we just need to get together and see what we can do. I'm not saying that we haven't been serious, but it's been difficult. And I also want to praise the coalition for making sure that at least they have the shelter open for certain times of the month. But I know they have to leave because then the migrant folks start coming in, and they use that till I guess November, the end of November. but we do have something. So hopefully that, through that, something permanent can come out. And I don't know if Doug or anybody can answer this, but the building with the county, is that, have you brought that issue up at the?
Yes, I'll talk about that.
Yeah, because that's, okay. Because that's there, it's whatever, and when the hospital moved, you know, we tried to look at different programs to use that facility for, but it never came to pass. But anyway, that's all I have to say, and I want to thank everybody for their efforts, especially our business folks.
Thank you. Councilmember Scatini?
Yes. I've been working with Nacio, and first I want to thank Doug for all the work he did, and you people from the church, I want to thank you too. I want to thank my niece who's homeless, and Karen, you did a good job. But Nacio's doing a real good job, and we're both on the intergovernment committee, and we're working, and he has some real good ideas, and very supportive. We need to mitigate this problem with the homeless. It seems like every time I go down Main Street, there's always see new faces, and some of these people are really handicapped, they're sick, they're old, and we need to get them off the streets. And Nasha's going to address that a little later. He's got some good ideas, and I'm 100% behind him and working with him very closely. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Councilmember Friend?
Yeah, again, I know Doug's been doing this for a long time, and he's even tried to recruit me, and I was successful in staying away from it, because I didn't have the time for the commitment at the time, because I didn't want to commit to it knowing that I was not going to have the time to do it. My biggest concern right now, and I sure wish somebody would come up with the answer, because I would sure support it, whatever it was, but we can't expect these people that are doing it now, the churches and the temporary shelters and everything, it's all temporary. It's all, tonight we can feed you, but tomorrow night we don't know what you're going to do. And that's not a solution. That's pushing the can down the road, and that seems to be where we got to, and that we're not, now all of a sudden we're facing it, and my concern is, and I just don't pay it, I haven't paid enough attention to it, is I just can't see where we're going to come up with a sustainable, if you come up with it, I'll support it 100%, but I wish we could come up with something, and I know there's something out there, and I know Ignacio's been working on it. I've talked to him several times about ideas that I have on what we could do, what the city could do, not just pouring money into the bucket. Sometimes we can have all the money in the world, and it's just temporary stuff. We've got to find jobs that last more than a weekend, or housing that's good for a month, but then another renter walks up and offers a little more money, and they kick the homeless person out. So their cycle never changes. If you don't change the cycle, we can't stop this. We can't battle it. I'm fully in support of anything that we can do that it's obviously a problem. It's really disturbing when you talk, and I have talked to people down by the liquor store a few times about exactly what they need, and it's hard to get, they don't understand. They know what the situation is. They don't understand what they need to do it. So I'm just at a loss as to what, I will do anything people can come up with to help. I just get a loss of where we're going to need to go. They don't need education. They're pretty smart. They know what they need. And if you offer them a meal, they'll eat the meal. But that's not tomorrow's solution. That's just today's solution. We need to find something that's tomorrow's solution, I think.
You're absolutely right. We had another speaker, I believe.
Hello, my name is Sofia Torres. I've been working with the Homeless Coalition for about 60 days now. I'm also homeless. I'd have to say, if it hadn't been for Shauna and Laura and Doug and Linda and everybody else, I'd still be out there, and it's hard. It's hard to be out there, especially in the wintertime. It's freezing, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to go to the shelter, and we're trying to get into housing right now. She took us all up, Laura took us all up to get jobs, and we all got jobs from from Nelson Staffing. And these people, they go above and beyond of what their jobs are, and it's really, really sad to see that it's going to end so soon. And I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you, Ignacio.
Thank you for coming up. Wanted to address some of the questions, but Enrique, if you could talk about what we're trying to do right now with the grant, to get an idea there so people know what
Sure.
is in the pipeline.
The county is in the process of finalizing the CDBG, Community Development Block Grant, Notice of Funding and Availability application. We are applying for $2 million, of which $500,000 are geared for public services, to support Emmaus House, to support homeless services, for supportive services, advocacy, outreach, linkages, and also some youth services. 1.5 million towards some type of center, a day center with hopefully some mixed transitional housing to allow us to have our homeless community go there and have access to restrooms, access to showers, access to mailbox, kitchen facility, and so forth. So that's the plan right now. We did consider different sites, including that one you mentioned. And there's one that we're leading, and hopefully we could secure, which is right behind our the agency, Health and Human Service Agency. So we're working with a strong leadership team, including Mr. Velasquez and co-board supervisor and our CAO and our director, Jim. So that's what we're trying to do right now to address our local homeless issues.
Thank you. So I wanted to address some of the questions, because Councilmember Friend, you made some had some great questions. And how do we afford it? Well, the truth is we can't afford not to do it. It's costing us a lot more money not doing something than just get active on what we have to do. That is, find a way to have people have shelter so they come through the system and we help them work out. Part of the program we went through talked about that exact issue. And the failures from the past have been that you bring people in, you do really nothing about it, and then you cycle through and they come back and back and back. The difference now with this program, 100,000 Homes, it's a program that talks about how to identify each step of this, how to take people through it, and understanding you will not have 100% success. But if we have 10% or 20% success, we're doing pretty well. Part of the program, again, is community involvement. That's not an easy thing. There's people like Doug that are out there, and we know there's the churches out there that are willing to do it. It's pulling all those resources together. Government in itself, as we know, will absolutely fail, right? But government opening the doors for these groups and having the people involved participate and make that difference will make the success that we're looking for. What we're looking for through the Intergovernmental Committee, because we've been talking about this for a while, is the city willing to move forward with the 100,000 home program? Personally, I'd like to see us start working towards a temporary campground to address this issue of people that are going to be homeless spread out throughout our streets. This way we have one area where the homeless can camp, nearby services. And then again, I'd like to get a consensus on finding a way for us to start with the temporary jobs so that we're able to help the homeless take those first steps so they can learn to go back to work and eventually get full-time employment in the private sector. So what I'd like to see to take back to the intergovernmental is a consensus of let's move forward on the 100,000 homes. Let the county know that we're willing to be partners with them on this. So,
If you're looking for consensus from me, you have it.
You want a motion on this?
I don't think we need a motion, we need just consensus, So if I have that, I will take that back. I want to thank you all for that. Thank you very much. Thank you for all of you that came out tonight. Thank you, Enrique. Item H, I, J, and K, there's no business.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much for coming out tonight.